I love that intro. It's like, boom. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, listening to the best podcast of them all. Live from Waukesha Studios, it's BatCast. I fucking hate the name of it. Oh, Tannenbaum. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Thank you for checking out BatCast. I am your host, Andrew Caracci, alongside
Roth.
And what do we have in store tonight? Tonight
we have a review of Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Yes.
So
our first animated movie.
Kind of getting away from the animated series for one episode here, and we're doing a
it's not really
feature film.
Right. It's directly ties in with the series. Like it's technically supposed to be like a standalone episode. So it's not necessarily it doesn't take anything from the animated series that's part of their story. It's it's original story. They're just using the same characters. So this never gets referenced in the animated series again until Batman Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually not till Justice League. So
I mean, considering though, like every episode is standalone, they really don't reference one episode to another episode anyway. So if you treat this as just an episode of the show,
sometimes they do. We just haven't seen it yet because we've only seen like 12 episodes or whatever.
Correct, but I mean, even if it does happen, I would assume it happens extremely rarely. Right? It's not like a constant thing. Because I mean, if the first 12 we've watched or 9 or whatever, are an example of what we're going to see, it. Like a super long episode.
Right. This was my favorite. This is my favorite out of all the films I've ever seen, at least Batman related.
Well, you were saying it's like your favorite movie. One of your favorite movies.
It is. It's definitely my top 3. I don't know if it would be number 1, but I'm going to have to say, yeah. I like this shirt, by the way.
I like this shirt, by the way.
Okay.
Mark Hamill. Both of them, so it's okay.
Right.
It's all right.
So this stars Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as...
Who did a fantastic job, by the way.
Right.
Wow.
Like something... this is how you'll see this movie, and then you'll go back and watch the animated series, and you feel like if they would have been able to do what they did with this movie and adapt it to their animated series, like... how much better could the animated series be?
Yeah, but
the animated series is still really good, but it could be even better.
But I think with a character like the Joker, like you don't benefit from him having a family-friendly rating. Because when you're able to push the limits a little bit further with him, he's able like the jokes he got in there like throughout the movie where about getting in the mood and stuff like that.
Animaniacs have made those jokes that underneath the radar.
Yeah, but I feel like this was a little more direct. There wasn't really many other ways. Like a double entendre is one thing, but like he was being direct with it, or like he was holding, his robotic wife's ass and stuff like that. Again, you could point to Animaniacs and all the times where you'd see the nurse's boobs or whatever, and they'd go, "Hello, nurse," and all that kind of stuff. And
the reason I say Animaniacs is because it's the same network. So that's
correct.
Why.
Yeah, it was a WB animation, and it was roughly around the same time Animaniacs got it started. A little bit later,
way later. It was like
it was like 96 or 97, wasn't it?
Yeah, way later.
Yeah,
because animated series was done by like 94.
Well, it came back and.
Right. Most Batman animated series fans pretend like that 4th season didn't exist. I think it's a good season, though. I'm like one of the only ones that actually really enjoyed it. I just didn't like the animation. Did the animation on everybody, and they made it more modern. They made the Batmobile small. They made they made him thinner. They made all of the women in the show real thin. rather than what they look like. They look like people when
Mhm.
we're watching it. They made everyone was a little bit more crispier, I guess. But
With it being newer, yeah.
right, but I didn't like it because it was different. It didn't have that Gotham City feel. Now I felt like I was watching which came out around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't like Batman Beyond in the beginning.
I feel like Batman Beyond is where I got my true start with Batman. Honestly, like growing up, I'd watch the the '60s stuff because actually they still do it now to this day. They would play, I guess, because they're both kind of campy, but they would play the original Star Trek, like from the '60s, right along with Batman. Like they'd always have them like back to back.
Right.
So I'd end up, I'm a Star Trek fan or whatever, so I'd end up watching Batman beforehand just because. So that's really my introduction to it. But Batman Beyond was like the first one I actually started episode and like enjoyed and looked forward to watching.
So the people that are listening, if you haven't seen Mask of the Phantasm, please watch it. You'll make things feel like it makes a lot more sense than us just talking about a Batman animated episode. When we do a movie, it's best for you to actually see it, so then you can kind of relate to what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of good in this movie. I mean, a lot of good complex storytelling for a kids movie. This was rated PG, back when PG meant something. And I don't know, I felt like if this came out today, do you think it almost gets the PG-13 rating?
No,
or like
PG. I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like
because I'll rate it to Under the Red Hood. Now Under the Red Hood got a PG-13 rating, but it was pushing an R. They did a little. It was it's real similar to what we just watched, except they showed you the death rather than letting it up to your imagination. We only saw one dead body in this film, which I think should be the next one we see. Just it's not technically in any order, but I'll give you the decide on what the next animated movie we'll see. I don't know if you want to keep it in order, kind of as they come out. I want to go one straight from the.
We can do it chronologically. That's fine.
Okay, so the next one would be Sub-Zero, the Batman animated that was supposed to come out when Batman and Robin came out. But because Batman and Robin was so terrible, they delayed it and had to come out the next year.
Mm.
They wanted to pretend like they had nothing to do with that movie because it bombed so bad.
Which makes sense. I think I had a train of thought there and I you were talking about ratings. I feel like if you look at what our rating was in like the 80s through early 90s compared to what they get away with an R rating today, because if you look at like some R-rated films, borderline like porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like there were still scenes.
PG-13 didn't exist yet. It was just PG or R.
And I feel like the ratings push it so much more. So much more is tolerated now that each rating lower allows you to get away with more. If you kind of follow what I mean there,
yes, you're right. You're
right. With children's stuff, like with Y7 and all that, it's pretty cut and dry. Like if it is a child's movie, they do not fuck around with it. It is what it is. They don't allow it. But then you start to look at stuff like SpongeBob and all that, and like the blatant stuff they get away with in there, and then like certain.
Well, I would say SpongeBob's more to an older kid, someone that's like.
I say it's squarely directed at adults.
Well, yeah,
I feel like
it
continues where Animaniacs left off, because goddamn, But each rating allows so much more. Like once you get out of that like Y7 or that G-rated stuff, once you get out of there, I think you have so much more latitude to do whatever, even up and through R. I mean,
the reason I could say that this could have gotten a bigger rating if they showed us a little bit more. If we would have seen more than one dead body, I think we would have gotten a little bit of a higher rating.
I think, yeah, if you would have seen more than one, or if you would have,
maybe
when one of the mob bosses got crushed by a tombstone or a gargoyle or whatever that was, if you would have seen like blood dripping from it or something, obviously then the blood and everything is going to throw it over the top. because then you're going to, or even
that's
more
where I
dead
think
bodies,
this.
you're going to see.
That's why I think
disturbing
this movie
images.
did it good.
Mhm.
When I watch a movie, I don't need to see that. Like I like it when they leave it up to your imagination, because sometimes I feel like your imagination is more can be a lot more cryptic or a lot more descriptive than what them showing you. When they show it to you, well, then it's there. There's no
Right.
imagination there. But when you're imagining that mob boss getting crushed by that angel thing, immediately you're like, damn.
Yeah,
Like holy shit. Like
I
that
mean,
just happened.
You know he's dead, but or is he? You know, again, they never really. I think they said dead or killed a few times in it, but for
A
the
lot
most
of
part,
times.
for the
Everyone
most
was killed
part,
off.
they just said you've been taken out, or he's getting or I mean, they started talking. I mean, they
Iced.
yeah,
Which is a
they
term
implied
for
it
kill.
heavily. They did say death and kill a few times.
Now the reason they use the term iced and that kind of stuff is because they're gangsters and they're going with that 1930s lingo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it had anything with them trying like to make it PG or whatever. But PG was a tougher rating than this was rated a lot higher than their animated stuff, their series. And what Bruce Timm said, that they got that PG rating, that they decided that they were allowed to get away with a lot more. They wanted to push the envelope as far as they could go for a PG film for that time, at least. And originally what happened was they were given 2 hours to make this, or 2 hours, 2 years to make an animated movie, which back then, that's how long it used to take. To make a real animated movie, take about 2 years to make a good one, at least. They got it cut in half. And because they cut it in half, they had a small budget. And because of the small budget, they just told Bruce Timm, do whatever you want. So this wasn't really crisp edited either. There are a few animation errors that if you watch it a bunch of times, like I have, you catch them immediately. I don't know if you caught it, the scene where Bruce attempts his first fuck tent on Andrea Beaumont in the front yard. She had no sleeves when she showed up to the building, and then when he was on top of her, she had sleeves. She had red sleeves. So that was like one thing that I noticed that like the first time I watched it. The motorcycle the motorcycle explosion. There was no explosion. They gave you the sounds of an explosion, but the bike didn't actually explode. That was another one. There's a couple things where the animation looked really, really good. The part where Bruce Wayne is where he hits the wall in frustration, where he's like, I can't take the call. I don't know, Albert. I just don't know. And he hits the wall, and you see him like actually acknowledge pain. They don't do that in animation. Even to this day, they don't even do that. Like the simple things a normal person would do. If you hit a wall, you're going to shake your hand because it's going to hurt a little bit. Most animation, they hit the wall and they don't even acknowledge it, because in animation, I think a lot of animators forget that they're supposed to animate it like if they're real people. And this is where they really excelled in. They do this a lot in the series. I'll compare it to Red Hood. There's a scene in Red Hood where Jason Todd is on top of Batman. He's punching him in the face. But Batman shows no, like, you just hear the sounds like, but the animation doesn't support it. And when we get to that movie, I'll point that out. Like, and that's new. That's 2010 animation compared to this is 1993. Was this made?
Somewhere around there, 92, 93.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what puts this movie on top of all of them is the music or the score of the film. I felt like every music fit perfectly to what was portraying on screen. Now, when you're watching this movie, did you kind of forget at times that you were watching a Batman film and you were just watching a movie?
I don't look at it necessarily like that. Like I just felt like I was watching an animated film.
How about this? Did you feel that you kind of forgot that you were watching an animated film and then you were watching a movie? Like there were times.
I could say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Like you felt that you could adapt this to live action and it would be just fine.
I don't know how I'd feel about what they just did there being live action.
What if the first...
I prefer it this way.
I do too.
I prefer it this
But I'm
way.
saying, like, if they took this script that
I feel like it would lose something if it was translated to live action. I feel like you'd have like I think the story wouldn't be able to be told as adequately. I think for the story they were telling, it maximizes it by it being in the style it is. I know what you're getting at on that one. Like the story was as good as a story that you would have gotten from a live action movie, if not better, a lot better. I feel like the level of storytelling that you got from this is on par with anything you'd get from a live action movie, at least. So,
did the movie feel long to you?
As in, did it bore me?
No.
Or did it feel like a movie?
It was an hour and 12 minutes. Did it feel longer than an hour 12? Because to me, I felt like I watched an hour and a half. I felt like I watched a full...
I would have thought it was an hour and a half. I didn't know it was only an hour 12.
Well, I don't even think it's that much. I think it's less than that. I think it's only like an hour and 10 or an hour and 8. Most animated films don't go more than an hour and a half. Actually, you go back to even the Disney films. They're usually...
Because I felt like it was on par with, lengthwise anyway, with what we just watched last week with the Harvey Dent stuff. Two-Face.
Okay, so 40 minutes.
So I felt like it was maybe a hair longer than that, but just about the same length overall. This was a far better story, and that was a really good story in that one. But.
Right. And same people did that too, obviously.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, so you got to see another dimension of Batman. In the animated series so far, we haven't seen a lot of, right? We've been seeing videos or movie or episodes on the villain, mostly. This was a Batman film, correct?
Correct.
With an actual Batman story. The villain didn't take up the entire film, like in The Dark Knight, where they gave Heath Ledger all that time as the Joker. They didn't try to tie in. The one thing I did like about it is the Joker. How the Joker was a part of this mob before, obviously, he was the Joker. And he remembers it, which is something different from other versions of the Joker. The best thing about the Joker character is he has no backstory. He has a billion different backstories because he doesn't even know his real backstory. All he knows is he was the only thing that's similar to all of them is he was dropped in a vat of chemicals. That's the one storyline. Now in The Killing Joke, his backstory is he was a bad comedian that couldn't make people laugh. The irony. In the game that I'm playing, the Batman Telltale series, he doesn't have a backstory in that one. He's just known as John Doe. He doesn't have a name. He just checked himself into Arkham Asylum just to fuck with people, to see how many people he can drive crazy.
Well then.
And he's succeeding. But he's very nice to people too. But at the same time, he tries to get people to kill each other. So this movie starts off. You have is that Chucky Saul in the beginning? So Chucky Saul and his men are making some kind of deal, and was interrupted by Batman. And Batman chases him out to the parking lot, and then we meet the Phantasm, who is... That was another thing, was the Phantasm was a mystery the entire film. That they made you believe the entire time that it was the father. And the best thing about it is they even tried to make it, they were trying to get you to guess it was the father before making it obvious that it was the father. But once when they kind of told you that it was the father, did you immediately think, oh, it can't be the father now?
No, I was all in on the father the whole time.
First time I watched it, I thought it was after I actually thought it was the Joker because I'm fucking retarded, but because I knew the Joker was in the film, so the Joker was it was going to be a classic Joker Batman film, and I didn't understand. I was 5, I didn't know,
right?
But I remember thinking the beginning was all boring because I didn't understand it. I liked the Batman chase scene and then the Joker lines. Then as I got older, I began to appreciate the story more and realize that this is a complex story. Like there's a lot of things going on here. They told a lot of the story in flashback.
Which I've got to say, I understand why they did it that way, but for part of what they were telling, it's the only way they could do it. It's just, it was kind of, I don't know.
Would you have rather them
left a strange taste in my mouth the way they did it?
Would you have rather them opened up the movie like that and then go to current time that way? Like, how do you tell that story? Because you have to put that in there somehow. Because otherwise, it's a lot of stuff's going to be going. Otherwise, you don't have a movie.
You could have done it a few different ways. You could have had, the flashback, if I could speak, the flashbacks were put in some weird spots.
Yeah, they were.
Spots that would be kind of awkward. Like, okay, if you would have had like a dream sequence flashback, that's one thing you could do. And you could even have a little fun with that, because then you could have like the traditional flashback or whatever. You're telling the story, and then it's modified at the end, and they make it clear, and you could, fix like whatever his current thoughts are on something into the past. So you could kind of do part of that, kind of like what we've seen in the animated series before, where they were showing something from the past, and then it became something completely different because of what was going on in the current story. Like the one where they were robbing the bank. Mm-hmm. I think was that the Scarecrow episode, where the flashbacks kind of morphed into current. So you could have done something like that. That's one way you could have done it. Or you just do it at times that just generally aren't as awkward. Like when you are spying on your ex outside of a restaurant and you're like right outside the window. It's probably not a good time to have like a 15-minute flashback, whereas if you get home or he's back in the Batcave or whatever, and he's just taking off his mask and he just like looks at a picture and then it goes into
like the first flashback.
Correct. That would have made it. I think the one I'm focusing on is the one where
there were 3 flashbacks, at least that were. The first one was in when he went into his parents' room or whatever, the study. The second one was when he with the goggles, right? Where he was spying on Reeves and Beaumont. Mm-hmm. And then the third one was him in the office when he went to take the picture, and then he found Andrea Beaumont's father in one of the photos. And then he had another. He's like, Andrea's father. And did his days off into space. Now, I don't know if they were including that his 15-minute flashback correlated with real time, that he was actually sitting there for 15 minutes. Or when you think of a flashback of recalling events, it doesn't take you 15 minutes, even though it took you 15 minutes to do it in real life.
I think it would have been better if none of the flashbacks took place when he was in Batman mode. If he was just Bruce Wayne and he was having these flashbacks or whatever, that's one thing. But when
the Andrea's father one is okay because
it ties in.
He saw a picture and that created the one where he was spying on them, like
he would have. Yeah. Okay.
So this movie did rely on a lot of flashbacks for storytelling purposes. Mm-hmm. The flashbacks themselves, were they good did they tell the story correctly?
Yes.
I thought so too.
They did.
There were times I forgot he was in a flashback.
Ditto.
But
then that kind of highlighted the point then when they got back, like, wait, that was a flashback this whole fucking he's been there. Wait, what?
Yeah,
like 10 minutes he's been just staring with fucking binoculars into a restaurant. No one saw this?
It was kind of amazing.
Like yeah.
So Chucky Saul gets murdered by driving. Well, he doesn't really get murdered. He kills himself, essentially. He drives off from one platform to another and then dies, I guess, at impact. This led to Buzz, or Mr. Bronski, to visit his grave in the middle of the night with only 2 his bodyguards, and he tells his bodyguards to stay back so he can get murdered by a humongous bumblebee. Because he's going, Buzz.
Yes. Dun, dun.
But no, that was the gruesome graveyard death.
Yeah, where Tombstone got pushed on top of a guy.
Now, Salvador Valestra,
Mr. Molester,
which is the big mob boss out of all of them. He's the one that was in charge back. I guess this would have been 10 years ago. This looks like, maybe.
Well, this would have
maybe
all
5.
been around the time Batman got started, right?
Right, so maybe 5. Because he's been Batman for 2 years before the animated series started, and roughly for about 2 years. We could say this was probably. We'll treat this as the last episode of the animated series. Is that fair? So we'll say this would have been 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when the flashbacks were 8 years ago from the flashback, because he would have been Batman for about 5 years, and
well, all the flashbacks were taking place at the same period of time.
Right.
If in one of those flashbacks was when he was getting started in his relationship with Beaumont,
which he was acting as a vigilante still.
Correct.
But he wasn't Batman until after.
At the end of the very last one was when Alfred finally gave him his mask, and then he had on his Batman suit.
Which was an awesome scene.
So that was then all around the same time, at which point he got his start. You're probably looking at 4 to 5 years. Right?
Well, it would have been 5 years after he put on. So the animated series started 2 years after that event. After
Correct.
he put on the mask.
Correct.
So the animated series has been going on for about 3 years before this movie. So he's been Batman for 5 years.
Okay.
So it would have been 5, 6 years ago.
5 years. Yep.
Maybe. Well, it depends. I don't know how long he was been Batman. It could have been longer. Well, we don't know.
But it's also a matter of, at this point then, at what point does this movie take place in relation to the animated series?
Right. We'll just say, for the sake of argument, we'll say it was the last episode of the animated series. So we'll say he's been Batman for roughly 5, 6 years.
Okay.
So the flashbacks had to have been about 5, 6 years from where the movie's taking place. Whatever. It
doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. I don't know why we're even discussing that. But so there's a huge story flaw in this whole thing that I just caught this time watching. This entire thing could have been completely avoided. We wouldn't even had a movie if Andrea's father would have let Andrea marry Bruce, and then Bruce pays off the debt.
Yeah, but it had to be done within a matter of a week.
Which he would have been easily.
It would have been better, like you said, the whole situation. I would leave the marriage part out of it, but explain the whole situation. Here's what's going on. I'll pay you back or whatever. But
he could have went to Bruce, said, Bruce, we're in a situation. Explain the whole thing to him, and I bet you. How would this have changed? I don't know if anything would have changed. Would Bruce would he would have just put on the cowl and gone after him? Or would he have just paid off the debt?
I think he would have paid off the debt, bought time, and then killed them all. Or
he wouldn't have
got them all. But
yeah. So that's kind of interesting. Another thing is, you see, obviously Andrea's father gets murdered. So another thing that's kind of interesting is what Andrea turned into because of her seeing her father get murdered. Not in front of her. She just walked in on the dead father on the kitchen floor, looks like. And which was the 5th death in the movie, or 4th death. We had the 3 mob bosses and then the father. We all know. So 4 deaths. And who knows about the Joker? So the 4th death. So he's the 4th death of the movie. And so what happens is she becomes this, not vigilante, by any means, but like the Punisher almost.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back to our original argument, our original point that we talked about when we started this podcast. If he was older and saw his family murdered in front of him, would he become the Punisher, or would he have still gone on course and became Batman?
Oh, I think absolutely the age at which his parents died determined how he was going to handle it.
Right, because he had a lot more time to grieve.
Not only did he have a lot
it.
more time to grieve, but the way he perceived what had happened as a child and how he came to terms with that in his mind and how that shaped him is completely different than if you're an adult. You know how you perceive death and revenge and all of that stuff. And if you have the means to do it right away as an adult, you're probably going to. If Bruce Wayne saw his parents murdered as an adult, he obviously has the means to do it. When you're a child, what are you going to do? Take on, whoever? No, obviously not. You have to come to terms, deal with it in your mind differently. So I think it would have been the exact same thing as what you saw in the movie. He would have killed everyone.
Because guns traumatize him. When he sees a gun, it freaks him out. Because it's what killed his parents. There's a scene in the Red Hood. I keep referencing the Red Hood. But there's a scene in the Red Hood where Robin throws him a gun. And the face that Batman makes, like he won't even hold it. He just has it in his hands like cuffed like this. And he won't even hold the gun like it's a gun. In The Dark Knight Returns, there's a scene where he has a gun and he's trying to shoot he put a mime on the wall or whatever, and he just got stabbed to death pretty much at this point, so he can barely move. And he's trying to shoot this target to try to blow the wall up so he can get out of dodge or whatever, and he kept missing the shot. And he's just like, damn clumsy motherfuckers. Like, he hates guns. Clearly, he's not a gun guy. He also says they're loud and clumsy. That's why it's not a very good stealth weapon by any means. If you're trying to take out like a group of guys rather than just shooting them all in a row, obviously. But like to him, it's at least if you ever seen the show Arrow, the Green Arrow uses arrows because they don't make as much noise as a gun.
A suppressed gun makes no noise.
Yeah, it's still
very little.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, like,
I understand. I understand the storytelling. Like, a gun is loud and the arrow is not. A gun is loud. Martial arts is not. Like, I understand that, but yeah, a suppressed gun is gonna make no noise anymore. I know. I killed your argument. I'm sorry.
I'm not killing.
No,
I'm not arguing.
I'm kidding.
I'm just saying, like, an arrow has nothing against guns at all. He just
prefers an arrow. Yep.
Yeah, because he feels like he can be a lot more effective.
It's like Norman Reedus. Well, you don't watch The Walking Dead, but I mean, there's one guy who just uses a crossbow. It's his thing.
Yeah.
It's his thing.
It's arrow.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you could use a gun, you could use whatever, but
he also feels he has more aim with an arrow than he does with a gun.
Oh, I know plenty of people like that prefer, like, even when it comes to hunting and stuff, they prefer bow hunting and they can't stand it. They're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with a gun. I love using a bow and arrow. Like, okay, power to you. I would never criticize that decision. Whatever a person, it's a matter of what a person feels comfortable with.
So anyways, like, so those are some talking points there. There's so what happens? Do you like the Joker tie-in? Or was it kind of random?
It was kind of random, but it worked out. I think they had to throw the Joker in there just because it's the Joker and it's a Batman movie. So, throw in your biggest...
He doesn't show up until like the 35-minute mark or something like that. That I felt was like, I can't believe they waited that long to bring him in. And it was supposed to be kind of a surprise, but because of the trailers, it kind of ruined it. So you knew the Joker was in it. Plus, you saw Mark Hamill's name in the credits, so you would have known right away. Did you like the Joker in this?
I loved it. It was great.
He had like 3 lines I loved. He had the "can't be too careful with all those weirdos walking around." I use that line at work. Like that's like one of my favorite lines. Like you do something completely odd and then you say that immediately afterwards. And people just give you that look like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? You come in to work wearing a turkey hat and you say, "Can't be too careful with all them weirdos walking around." And maybe cross your eyes a little bit when you say it. That one.
Just drop your pants and take a big old shit.
when Andrea Beaumont found Salvador Valestra's dead body in the apartment that was strapped to dynamite and everything, and he says like, "Oh, you're not bad after all. Looks like there's a new face in Gotham, and soon his face will be shown all over town, along with his feet and spleen and hand."
That was a good one.
That was a good one. And then he had another one where he was referencing he wanted to feel the old electricity tonight with his robot wife. And then he noticed the window came open. He's like, ain't it the way you get into the mood and company shows up."
Mm-hmm. That was a good one. That one, but that's one of those risque ones you would have seen in the animated series. So,
oh, there's a Harley Quinn. Are you familiar with her?
Mm-hmm.
So, in the animated series, and she gets up on the desk on all fours and says, "Come on, Joker, don't you want, or Mr. J, don't you want to rev up your Harley?"
It's a good one.
So yeah, they do that.
AKA plow her from behind. I get
Right.
it. Okay. AKA, never mind.
Another things I liked about No Robin.
Yes.
You can do a Joker movie without Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need her. I don't think she was. I don't think she was. Yeah, she was part of the show. I was surprised she wasn't in this. Like when I really look back and look at it compared to what time it came out, because there was a time where you didn't have a Joker episode without Harley Quinn. So I was kind of surprised that they didn't have Harley Quinn in this movie. Oh, another one I liked. Another line he had. He breaks in on Arthur Reeves. It's like go on the photo op. The councilman and his wacky pal, and he does the whole rolling of the eyes. So that scene. So the part where he says, it's like, "Now, ain't that a coinky dink? We're talking about the old man, the spawns of his joints," just happens to call. Makes you want to laugh, doesn't it? That one and the scene, what's an old timer like you want with a two timer like me? I like that line. Or when he just slams the guy into the roller coaster and says, "Hold on to your hat and watch your valuables."
Yeah, I mean he definitely delivered good lines in that. I think Mark Hamill did a fantastic job.
They were written way better than what we've seen so far in the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was ready to say that the Joker in the animated series was the most overrated villain we've seen, because everyone talks about how great Mark Hamill is, but then we go to the Mask and the Phantasm. I think that's where it comes from. Is he was so good in that movie that we try to forget about the animated series. There's only one episode I can think of where he was really, really good, and that was The Laughing Fish, which that's a good one. That one has that dark overtone Joker episode. And Harley Quinn is in that one as well. So Commissioner Gordon's barely in this movie. He's got
he has a few lines. That's it.
Yeah. Harvey Bullock barely said anything. But how'd you like Reeves?
Asshole.
I thought it was kind of funny that he was yelling at the captain or whatever, the police force. He's like, we had like 4 precincts on him and he still got away. And slammed the phone down.
And who is this? And who is he? He's a city councilman.
Right.
Go fuck himself. Like, why wouldn't someone just tell him to go fuck himself? I would.
What's the whole thing? How come Commissioner Gordon can he override him?
He's a city councilman.
Right. What does a city councilman do? He's just a political guy, right?
Yeah, he sits on planning commissions and like okays things, liquor licenses and shit like that. And like gives lots of where cops should patrol. And like city councilmen don't have power like that. Like you approve a liquor license for a gas station. That's like your thing.
Is Detective Bullock the captain? And on
Commissioner is like the chief.
right, and Gordon's the commissioner.
Yeah.
So Bullock can make the call if Gordon doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And Gordon just said he said that you want him, you go after him. I'll have no part of it. Why wouldn't he just step in and be like, no, we're not doing this.
Fuck off. Like, no.
This is my guys. We're not going to go on a murdering spree on them.
Well, because overall, like, officers do take an oath to uphold the law. So, I mean, Batman is technically breaking the law. So, he can't say, don't enforce the law for this man.
That's true.
So that's
you
the
want
position.
Him, you go get him.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to support this. I'm not going to give any orders, saying go after him. But at the same time, he can't, like, step in and say, no, don't enforce the law. Because then he's making his own law, which is illegal. Okay. And he's breaking law. So that's what I
guess
think
they
is.
could. I guess they should be trying to bring him in for questioning.
Mm-hmm. Not just we have orders to kill him.
Right. Well, he was running, so use of deadly force was authorized. Remember that was being said?
Yeah, but the only time use of deadly force would ever be authorized is if you're an escaped felon. So if you escape custody and you're a felon, you can use deadly force. Warrant out for your arrest, like based on something horrible, which there wasn't, or if you're like brandishing a weapon.
Well, they said Batman, you were under arrest.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
Okay.
Like if the cops tell me you're under arrest, and I'm like, fuck you, and I run, as long as I don't have like a gun on my side, they can't shoot me.
Okay.
They have to tackle me. Well, unless you're like our current cops where they just go kill crazy for who knows why. But
okay. There was this was really good. I really liked this. I thought the cop chase scene was really good too. Kind of reminded me of The Mask a little bit when he was running down the alley and climbed the fence. Same thing in The Mask if there was no fence. He fell from like 7 stories and landed on his feet, just kept running.
Hey, he's a bat.
That's what bats do. They can fall from 7 stories and get up and run.
It's running bats.
Yeah, this running martial arts bat person. So we have Salvador Valestra.
Mr. Molester.
Mr. Molester. The flashback with the proposed flashback. So he proposes. He has the best proposed scene I think I've ever seen in any movie. He's like, oh, I'm no good at this. Here, you'll get the idea. And his hands are the ring. I thought that was perfect. And I think only someone like Bruce Wayne can pull that off. Well, he's a charming guy. Like, he could pull anything off, I feel.
I think the Joker could have pulled it off.
With Harley?
He could have just found a random victim, duct taped her, and threw a ring at her. I mean, right here.
Oh, okay.
I get you.
Okay. So, she sends a letter back that Alfred reads to him. And how'd you feel about that? Need time. Left with dad. Too young. Forget about me. Like a 5-year-old wrote it.
It was. Well, I think I was
paraphrasing.
I think he was paraphrasing. I think he was just like. I don't think he was reading it. Like, obviously, he was paraphrasing. He wasn't reading like word for word. Otherwise, that would have been like, you have Down syndrome or something. Like, that's like, I don't need time. Eat food. Me go now. Like, what?
The scene where Batman is in Andrea's bedroom before he attempts to rape her, and so he asks her You still following your dad's orders? She's like, the only one in this room that's following their parents' orders is you.
Oh, damn.
Damn! Kind of a wicked thing to say, and then she felt bad about it too. Now, as you're watching it, did you want them, like, you know how it's going to end, because we know Batman, he doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, when you're watching, are you like, you really want this to work? Like, you feel like you want it to because you feel like he deserves it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's tragic that it doesn't work out, obviously. But not as it was a lie, pretty much, why she left. And he this whole time just thought that she just wasn't into him.
Yep.
And it totally just destroyed him, obviously. And I think probably that same night he put on the cowl for the very first time. And every night he puts that on, it's always will be a remembrance of that day, which is added on to the reason why he does it, with his parents being murdered. And it's like, it's another thing added to it. Correct. It's another reason why he never got close to anyone again. Besides Catwoman, which they don't really do that in the animated series, so they make a lot of cat puns, like meow. I'm gonna meow all over you. And he's like, Batman. No.
It's just a little shitty show. Next, Batman. He says his name because he's a Pokemon, a horned up Pokemon apparently. Ghastly.
Ghastly. What did you like about the movie? I've talked a lot.
I think first and foremost, the storytelling. It's great storytelling for it being pure animation, which we don't really get anymore. Great animation, great voice acting, especially Mark Hamill. Fantastic voice acting. Most people just know Mark Hamill for Luke Skywalker.
And the Joker. The thing, like, a lot of people know that now. Because of the Arkham
There
games.
are people out there, but mainstream, I'd say mainstream, no one knows him for the Joker in the mainstream
Because
audience.
of the Arkham games, yes, now. Now, if you're asking before the Arkham games came out, I'd say no. But a lot of people know him for the Joker voice now. There's actually a lot of people that I'm telling, like, the people that aren't big Star Wars fans like myself, I have friends that are like that. They know him for just the Joker and don't even realize that he's Luke Skywalker. Because of the Arkham games.
How many people actually go through and find out who the voice actor is for anyone in a video game? Very few people overall are going to like.
If
take
it's
the time.
advertised though, as Mark Hamill, like,
and I feel like video games aren't necessarily mainstream, except for like.
But the Arkham games are.
No, I think video games as a whole aren't like mainstream. You're still, I think.
I get what you're saying.
Like, it's still being debated.
I get what you're saying, but I'm saying like his popularity has gone up because of the Arkham games.
9 out of 10 people are not going to know Mark Hamill. 9 out of 10 people who know Mark Hamill or know of who he is as a celebrity are not going to know him for Arkham. They're going to immediately say Luke Skywalker. Do you agree?
I don't.
Most people.
Not most.
I think the vast majority
that know of Mark Hamill.
I think if you walk out and you say Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker is what you're going to hear back.
I would also think that majority
just because
of people that watch Star Wars probably are familiar with comics in general too.
I think Star Wars has its own fan base following and everything else independent of anything. I think people who barely even are into sci-fi are Star Wars fans. I think Star Wars is just so much bigger than Batman and video games in general that it's not even close. But we can disagree on it. It's fine. It doesn't matter. It's opinion. But
I'm going to disagree that
I think Star Wars is infinitely bigger than Batman.
Just in general, like the brand Batman.
The brand.
I disagree. I think it's about the same.
Not even close.
If you're just talking about popularity, I'm not talking about money.
Oh, popularity worldwide, brand exposure, awareness of a brand.
I don't know. I think everybody and their mother knows who Batman is.
I think everybody and their mother knows what Star Wars is.
Correct. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know how you could say it's more than the other. I think they're pretty equal.
But which one's bigger? Like, as a brand, as a force, even as a money generator.
Well, the thing is that Star Wars in general has like its story that it is. There's like a billion different versions of Batman, but it all correlates to one Batman. Like, if you're going straight on TV, then yeah, I'll give you Star Wars. But if you're talking about an entire brand, I mean, Batman made its name in the comics before Star Wars was even a thing. Like, Batman's been around since the 30s. So I mean, like, it was popular then. It's always he is the most popular superhero out of all of them. As a brand, the name Batman, I would have to say that the majority of people know that Batman is Bruce Wayne. I'd say probably everybody knows who Bruce Wayne is. I don't know if everyone knows every character from Star Wars. They probably know Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
Which is enough.
Right. But I don't know who the person is behind the mask. Like, I don't watch it. I've never seen it. So my thing is, like, with Batman is it has more than one kind of media. Not saying that Star Wars has one kind of media, but the majority, their biggest media is TV/movie. Like, what you see on TV, that's where it started as that. Batman started as a comic. And then you have animation, you have movies. Now, their movies aren't as big as Star Wars movies. Their animation's not as big as Star Wars movies. But overall, as a whole, because that's all of it, and it's been around longer, there's more versions of it. I think that it's characters, like, you have Batman, you have Joker, but the Batman villains in general, like, a lot of people know, like, Catwoman, Joker, Riddler, Two-Face. Well, maybe not so much Two-Face, but, like, in general, like, the big name villains, he's got a lot of them that they have more popular than any Superman villain.
Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader,
correct.
Princess Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca.
See, I only know 3 of the names
Yoda.
you just mentioned, and I'm the casual person. Like, when it comes to Star Wars, I'm very casual with it.
You shy away from Star Wars. I think you have an aversion to Star Wars. I feel like you avoid it. I feel like you avoid it. So I think beyond being a casual person, I think you see Star Wars and you turn your nose up and go the other way.
I'm not a fan.
Even if it's subconscious, I think, or it's conscious, which makes you not the common person. Because the common person isn't going to have an aversion to the movie.
I don't hate it. It's just not my thing.
They're neither going to ignore nor seek.
I'm talking about a person who hasn't seen a person that hasn't really watched Batman like I have. Like, there's a difference between me watching Batman and you watching Star Wars. Obviously, you've seen them all probably a billion times. I've seen the Batman stuff about a billion times. I've read a bunch. I haven't even read all the comics. You know, there's probably more shit I haven't read than I have read, and I haven't read that much. Some green eggs and ham bullshit right there. But, like, the thing is, if you want to say it's bigger, I'm not going to completely disagree, but I don't think it's as big as you think compared to Batman. I think they're pretty fucking close.
I think the things you don't realize are, okay, you have the movies, right? As it stands, I think technically we have 8 theatrical releases already, but
generally, they said we.
Like a Star Wars, whatever.
Gotcha.
Star Wars people. I'm taking the Star Wars side of the argument. You have those already, but there's been 8. I think the 9th one is coming out, next week? So you have Rogue One that's coming out. You have this whole universe that's been created, like the DC universe. We both have universes that we're operating in, right? Like,
our universe is huge.
Star Wars universe is huge. It's the whole universe.
Right, but I'm talking about character-wise.
There's a ton of characters in the Star Wars universe.
Same thing as the DC universe.
Okay. So, not only do you have the movies, you have TV shows that have been running.
Which DC has that too.
Well, now are you comparing the entire DC universe to Star Wars,
Well,
which is still bigger? But are you comparing the DC universe to Star Wars?
Well, it depends
now?
because.
Or are you just going to do Batman?
Well, if we're doing just Batman, you're taking an entire So if there's a Chewbacca movie, you're going to count that as a Star Wars movie. Are you going to count that? Are you going to count that as a Chewbacca movie?
But Batman, the difference between
if there's a R2,
the difference between Star Wars, you're using Batman as a brand, correct?
Correct.
Star Wars is a brand,
but Superman is still part of that same brand.
A part of the Batman brand, or
yes.
is he part of the DC Universe brand? Because a Star Wars movie is technically not called Batman, the Darth Vader movie, and it has everyone else in it.
Right, but I'm talking about like if there's a solo movie, say a Luke Skywalker movie, are you going to count that as a Star Wars movie?
They don't exist.
Okay.
They're not there. It's all or nothing.
Okay.
So if you're holding a Batman movie up against Star Wars, or you're using the Batman universe, which would be Gotham City and everything, that's how you're able to have a show, the Batman show, the animated series, or the movies, and it's all the universe surrounding Batman, and you don't have all these characters coming in and out. It would be the same as if Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, and all this came together, and then you had this, clusterfuck of hell. That would be whatever, and that would be a different story, but just focusing on Star Wars, you have all the movies that have been released. You have the Clone Wars TV show, which ran for, 5-6 seasons. You have another Star Wars Rebels that's on right now. You have a lot of the animated films with, like, Lego and all that stuff, just like Batman does. You have probably overall quadruple the amount of video games. And they've all been extremely successful video games for Star Wars. Every time a movie is released, anytime anything is released, you've had the video game tie-ins there. You have Star Wars Battlefront, Knights of the Old Republic. You have what they've essentially created, an expanded universe in addition to what you've seen in the movies.
You're saying there's quadruple more Star Wars video games than Batman video games?
At least.
I don't think that's true either, because Batman have been making video games since the Coleco. They've had Batman
games. As with Star Wars.
Right. Every time they get a new movie, they have a new game. It's every time.
But you have all the expanded content games that you have in the Star Wars universe. You have all the different ways they release the game. Like you have ones that just focus on the flying and all that. You have the RPGs. You have all the different Star Wars pod racing, where it was just a straight up racing game. There's been Batman Kart probably too or whatever, but you have a ton of video games there. You have comics. Star Wars comics now have been around since '77, and they've been released heavily. There have been a lot of Star Wars comics that are released up and through this day. You have Star Wars comics. When you go to a comic book store, you have a huge Star Wars section there.
And you get like a huge Batman section, which is
correct.
Which is like over half the comic book store.
But
that's their biggest thing, though.
The medium in which Batman got its start, Star Wars has even went into and dominated pretty well.
Not over Batman,
because that's where they made their mark. But I say the comic book market is a niche market compared to Star Wars being in the mainstream the way it is. Star Wars is just a bigger force, pardon the pun. It's just a bigger, it's more impactful. I mean, hell, Disney just bought the Lucasfilm, who produces Star Wars, for what, $4.5 billion, to give you an idea of its worth and its value as like a brand. It goes on the market. If DC went on the market, it is not selling as an entire company for 4.5. Marvel didn't even go for that much.
Well, DC's bigger than Marvel.
DC's bigger than Marvel, but they didn't even come anywhere close.
Significantly
You're talking
bigger.
about $1 billion. If DC went out, it would probably be $2 billion if you say they're worth double. Lucasfilm went for $4.5 billion.
You're comparing movies, and I'm not comparing movies.
Just for Star Wars. But
I'm just talking about straight popularity.
But they were buying
really
it for
measure
that brand. But the only way you can truly look at popularity is by the amount of money that you're able to generate.
They generate more money because they make better films. Because Batman has not made a good film in a very long time. So they don't make good live action films.
So then
Warner Brothers isn't as big as Disney. I get that. But I mean,
they did this before Disney. Their impact was made before Disney.
But I'm saying, but they got the Disney they got
now
they
their
got
new
the
push within the last
right.
couple years.
They have that, but like with it's a completely different argument because you're comparing the most popular media, which would have been films, are nowhere near that.
But then wouldn't that be a ranking then of your popularity? If you're the most
not
popular,
necessarily,
if you are the most popular in the most popular medium.
Not necessarily, because they had different people directing it. Like the Tim Burton '89 film was great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's probably their best movie, but that was back in 1989. Now, because of the '89 film, you had a completely different version of Batman. You go back to the '60s Batman, which was a very successful television show. I mean, even though I don't like talking about it, it still was very successful, and that's what got people to know who Batman was. They knew he was Bruce Wayne. They knew that not everyone knows that Robin's Dick Grayson, but most people know that Batman's Bruce Wayne. Even people that haven't watched any of the movies know that. I'm just talking about, you go and talk to the average person, I think it's the same. I would even say that more people know the Batman exclusive than Star Wars as an entire brand, because you're comparing Star Wars to just one character. And that's what I'm doing, because if you say one character to one character, then yeah, I'm going to say it's about the same. But are you telling me that even some people that haven't seen Star Wars, like myself, that are going to know the majority of the characters? I know a couple. I don't know them
I think
all.
most people would know the majority of the characters in the Batman universe. Besides Batman and Robin, I don't think anyone would know. Like, right. Then you have the few people that would know, like, the Joker.
So it's equal. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying one's bigger than the other. I'm saying I think they're equal when it comes to that. Like, Batman's been around for a very, very long time. It's been around forever. But it's been around, like, for a while. Their film adaptations have not been good outside of Batman Begins, which didn't do so great because it wasn't advertised very good. Now, if Batman Begins was the third movie, it probably would have been awesome. But because I think The Dark Knight is their highest grossing film out of all of them, and I hate that fucking film. Now, Batman just has more different varieties, and I think that's what has what gives its edge, because there's like more than one different version. If you're not a fan of live action, you have the animated series, which did extremely well. Their animated series goes on par with any other animated series when it comes to winning awards or whatever that is. And that was back in the early 90s. That's what gave it its credibility back, because it was losing credibility up to that point. The Adam West series like kind of killed it. If you're not a fan of that and you want to find a more hardcore Batman, read the comics. The comics they have like a billion different Batman universes. If you're more into the kids stuff, you can read Batman Ninja Turtles. And they have that. They have like a variety of different versions. I just think that its media compared to Star Wars I just think there's more variety of different versions of what you can watch, where Star Wars started off as a movie and then to their own little market after the fact, but it still started as a movie. Batman started as a comic. So it had its own original thing there. Yeah, Star Wars is going to dominate the movie scene because movies make more money than comics. But that's not, I'm talking about just straight popularity.
Right.
And you're basing popularity off money. And I said, yeah, okay, you're right if you're going to go off money. I'm not going off money.
What I would say would be, okay, everyone knows who Garth Brooks is, right?
The country singer?
Country singer, sure. A lot of people know who that is, right?
Correct.
Country music. We'll just talk about country music as a whole.
Okay.
Worldwide, country music ain't shit, right? It's not a big thing. No one cares for the most part.
Correct.
It's something worldwide, in this country. Correct. In this country, it's something. But so now let's say you have the most popular country artist in the world. You have the most popular country artist. Your overall market to start with is tiny. Your slice of the pie isn't much. So if you're the biggest bite of that slice of the pie, great. But then you have the rest of the pie. And the biggest bite of the rest of the pie is a lot bigger than the biggest bite of the smallest slice. And that's what I would go. That's how I would compare the two. Because if you're going to dominate the biggest medium, the biggest thing out there, movies, if that's just what you're going to go off of, like the biggest thing out there is movies, and they dominate books, science fiction books too, which they're way bigger than, like, there are Batman books out there. They've made a few on like the Arkham games and all that, but if you look at like science fiction books, Star Wars dominates the shit.
Are
like,
you considering a graphic novel?
No, I'm talking just straight like books, like literature. Every time there's a Star Wars book release, always a New York Times bestseller, every time. So they have a pretty strong foothold in that arena also. But like, if you are dominating the biggest medium on the market, then I think that shows your popularity compared to anything else. Like, if you can consistently, time after time after time after time, dominate the movie market, that shows your popularity. That is a proof of your popularity. Regardless of money on merchandising or anything else, regardless of the money they make off of Star Wars soap and Star Wars this and Star Wars that and how many toys they can sell, throw all that out and you just put it head to head with one another. Who can put more butts in the seats on the release of their movie? It's always going to be Star Wars. Always. Like, compared to a Batman movie, always. And overall, throughout the years, it has always been Star Wars. I mean, if you look at the amount of money raked in from the tickets sold for the entire Star Wars franchise versus Batman.
We already acknowledged that they don't make good movies.
So
it's not their strong point.
So they're just relying on comics then and the animated series?
No.
Which neither one would be as popular as the Star Wars movies.
Well, their comics are. That's their biggest.
Their comics are their biggest.
Their past comics is what their movies are based from.
So comics have the amount of saturation that movies do, would be the argument.
Well, their storytelling comes from their comics.
But do as many people read comics as watch movies?
Not anymore.
At what point did that end?
Probably in the 70s.
When Star Wars became big.
Mm-hmm.
So then Star Wars popularity has surpassed Batman's.
In the movie market, correct.
Oh, overall.
I don't agree with that. I don't know. I don't agree with that.
I think Batman merchandising is strong.
Yes.
I think some of the Batman movies are, they're what they are. They're good. I have no issue with them whatsoever. I watch them. I'm not going to criticize them. I don't have an aversion to like Star Wars movie. Like Batman movies. I won't like. I'm not watching that. Like I don't have that feeling about them at all. Like I watch them. I've purchased tickets to go see them. It is what it is. But I think even if you put them head to head with the movies right now, a Star Wars release is not. Well, I'm just saying, like, that is a good way to measure the popularity, though.
Well, yeah, that's you're just talking about money. I'm not talking about money.
I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about what draws people. What draws people to spend money? How popular something is. No money on something that's not popular, or something that you don't want to see. You're not just going to go out there and.
I don't think there's people out there that don't want to see Batman when it comes out. Like it's always like it could be part of like a bad movie and it still does well. They haven't had a good movie in a while. The people that are in charge of that are the wrong people that are in charge of it. It should realistically just be the guys that would made it good, and it should be the guys that did the animated stuff should be in charge of making their live action movies. As far as getting a story down. I mean, honestly, I think if that was the case, you have something that would do very well in that market. Now, the movies do very well in that market. They're not Star Wars level by any means, but they do well in everything else. I mean, Batman's not like TNA. It's not like fucking, and it's like own little micro universe or anything like that. I just think it's more like everyone knows who Star Wars is and everyone knows what Batman is.
I would say,
and that's all I'm trying to say is like
I would say Batman is not like TNA. Batman is like the WWE. And Star Wars is like television.
So you're saying Batman
as a whole.
Yeah, but no, I disagree with that too. Because Raw's ratings suck. Batman's ratings suck.
You said their movies suck.
I say they suck. Because I think
the market has determined they suck.
The typical Batman fan doesn't like their movies. Because they're not good. They don't do what made it good. The comics, the storytelling in there, I feel like that's why their movies suffer, because your hardcore Batman fans just are the ones that shit on it. Because there's a backlash.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of people that are a fan of Batman, the brand in general, but there's varieties of different kinds of Batman. Some people like Batman Beyond. Some people don't. Some people like the Justice League Batman, and some people that would be the animated series Batman. Some people are more fan of Christian Bale. Some people are Michael Keaton. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, in general, that's what you have. There's not like a billion different versions of Star Wars compared to Batman. Correct. So I don't know if Batman did a live action. They never done a live action show since the 60s. I don't know if they do one. The network won't let them. They're like have this weird thing. Like if CW did a Batman show, could they do one? Would it be good? Probably not, because it wouldn't stick to the source material. Because a lot of people shit on it, like people shit on Gotham.
Oh yeah, there's your live action Batman one.
It's not Batman though.
Batman universe.
It's doing well. So I mean, like it's on its third season. They're gonna make a fourth. And it's on Fox. That whatever.
Major network.
Right. So I mean, like it's fine. They have. I think that's kind of another point, is they have a lot of spin-offs that become successful in their own right, like Superman or Justice League, like the heroes from Justice League. They all have their own spin-offs. Now I think the more popular one is Arrow / Flash universe. Those shows are doing extremely well for a CW show. Actually, Arrow was the highest rated cable show. I think it was 1 year, like their cable show for the CW. They drew ratings that they've never drawn before. It's the highest rated show they ever had. So Arrow's not going away anytime soon, ever, unless Stephen Amell decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, which I don't think he will. I mean, he made a name because of that now.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised to read that, because I'm like, they drew more than Supernatural did? And the answer is yes. So, I don't know. And then you got the Flash show, which is doing very well. You have Supergirl, which CW has the rights to now, and it used to be NBC. And then Legends, which they took all their characters from Arrow and Flash and made their own show, a spin-off show. And that's doing well. So, I don't know. DC, I think what DC does well is characters. They're good at that. Mm-hmm. They're good at establishing their characters, and they can pump out a variety of different content. And I like to more compare DC to Marvel, because that's more of that same.
I think that's a perfectly fair comparison.
And it's tough to compare Star Wars to Batman, because that's like comparing pro wrestling to the NFL or something like that. It's a completely different.
I think
market.
Even pro wrestling to the NFL is a fair comparison if you're looking at popularity and everything, where the NFL would just W out of water. I think that's a fair. I think that's.
But again,
fair
but
comparison.
If you take the most popular character in WWE, like John Cena, everyone knows who John Cena is, and not everyone knows like the big football player names. I mean, Tom Brady and shit like that. But like, I think that's kind of the comparison I'm getting at, because Batman's not just Batman. Batman represents the whole DC universe, but Batman's their biggest star of that whole universe. But Batman is bigger than WWE, just in general.
Correct.
If Batman were to show up in WWE, it would draw the ratings up. If Star Wars showed up in WWE, it would draw the ratings up. Either way.
Both of them are more popular.
Right.
Right.
I think I got a little offended by significantly, and I don't think it's as significant as you said originally, because of how long Batman's been around.
Yeah, but
and he's not going away.
If you have a huge period of time where mainstream no one cares, it's not as valuable as the relevance Star Wars has had. Star Wars has been relevant every single year, extremely relevant, and a huge like generator of. Well, I know you're trying not to look at the money thing, but the money is a good way to look at popularity.
Correct.
Of things.
Batman does fine in that
consistently
department.
Every single year.
Their biggest form biggest form of medium isn't movies. It's television shows and comics.
If from 1940 to 1960, before the TV show was on, yeah, you have comics, Batman's in them. That's great. Kids read comics. People are fighting a war. Life goes on. No one's taking that medium seriously. And then I think there were a couple really old Batman movies and stuff, directed at kids. And, it wasn't as impactful as when Star Wars released, and it was a worldwide phenomenon.
Well, I don't know, because Batman came out in the 30s. It didn't come out, it came out when comic books weren't really a thing. And
So
if Batman was released, if we're just going off the first, we'll say like the first altercation of Batman would have been the '89 film for the next generation of people.
Mm-hmm.
The '89 film was very successful.
Correct. But
it was
not as successful as
Star
Wars
was. It was a phenomenal. Like, it was like, holy shit, this is for real. This is happening.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting a dark Batman finally in the live action film. Now,
but it wasn't the level of success that Star Wars was.
No, because it's not.
Star Wars had nothing that it built off of. Is like a huge point in and of itself. It didn't have 40 years of comics and a TV show and everything behind it. It started with what it was. So it's not like it was this steam engine just rolling along this whole time. And then, of course it released a movie and it was huge. And of course it released another movie and it was huge. Like, it came out of nowhere and boom, it was on the market. And then, so its start was bigger than everything that happened before it.
Yeah.
So it's like it immediately dropped a nuke and then went from there. Where Batman has been consistent. Yes, it has been consistently rolling along this whole time. Dolph Ziggler.
No.
Would be a great comparison. Or
no, it's a terrible comparison.
Maybe Eddie Guerrero or something like that, where you got something consistently going along, and it's good and it's appreciated for what it is and all that stuff.
They've been able to keep themselves. They've been able to keep themselves relevant for almost 100 years. You're thinking about 90 years, 80 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've kept themselves relevant. Normally something you get sick of after a while. Mm-hmm. It hasn't.
So have Rice Krispie treats.
Okay.
I
don't think that's the same thing. But I mean, like, they've been able to keep themselves relevant. They reinvent themselves because they have to, because they've been around for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars hasn't been around like that yet. So I don't know. And obviously, because now they got Disney, it's going to be different. But I mean, like, I don't know, when they did that episode 1, that wasn't received very well when that one came out.
Correct.
I mean, it probably did well.
It did extremely well
because everyone saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But perception-wise, it didn't do very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're gonna have their moments where they're not gonna put out the best fucking thing out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm looking at his content, not necessarily what it draws.
But I feel like there's so much content for Star Wars.
Right.
I as a Star Wars fan, as you are a Batman fan, can look beyond the movies. I don't give a shit about the movie. Like, the movies are great and all. I don't give a fuck about the movies. I focus more on their books. I love the Star Wars books. They have books that, instead of focusing on different universes, they focus on different time periods, because the Star Wars universe has gone on for thousands of years.
Right.
So their games will take place in different points in the Star Wars universe. They have the Old Republic. They have 50 years in the future. Like, the new Star Wars movie takes place like well after the last Star Wars movie in the 80s. Like, they jump around in time periods and stuff. So you get a different story based on which time period they're going into. They're not shifting universes like they are in DC Universe or with Batman or any of that. They're shifting around in time periods. So a lot of the expanded content takes place in time periods that they didn't cover in the film. And the same thing goes for some of their video games, like the MMO they just released, The Old Republic. That takes place thousands of years before the first movie. That's a universe essentially in and of itself. Their books kind of go all over the place. They'll focus on different characters and different subsets of characters and all that kind of stuff. So there's tons of content out there just in the books alone. And there's been, a lot of debate between like hardcore Star Wars enthusiasts and the people who just watch the movies about what should be accepted as like real content now that Disney bought it. Because Disney came in and said, like, all of that stuff doesn't matter before we bought it. All we care about is the movies. And they're saying none of the books matter anymore unless they relate to our movies. So, like, there's a lot going on there, too. But that's because there's so much Star Wars content on the market. There's so much. You have comics, you have the books, you have TV shows, you have all this stuff, like, vying for the same thing, much like DC does. But then you just focus on the movies alone. You can push all that stuff aside. You can just look at the movies alone, and that's the popularity generator. That's your bread and butter. That's your John Cena. The Star Wars movies. But I don't know.
Yeah, I told you I already agree that the movies are.
That's
bigger
their
than,
bread and butter. Yeah.
Are bigger than the Batman movies. I just think there's a lot more different exposure with Batman over the years. That's why a lot of people know him, because he's been around for so long. That's the only point I was trying to make. Like the average person walking on the street, I think I would say that there are going to be just as many or even more that would know more about the Batman backstory compared to the Star Wars story. I think it's pretty close. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think Batman is like this only has a cult following. It's very as mainstream as especially for a superhero, which for the most part are cult followings. But Batman's one of the rare ones that doesn't have that following. You could take any fucking Marvel character, any of them, and they have a cult following. They have maybe each character has a larger cult following than the majority of the DC characters, but like Batman is like the one that broke through all that, and Superman, that too.
Oh yeah, we've had this discussion previously,
right,
on the show. So, yeah, I have no allegiance or anything for Marvel whatsoever. Whatever, what they do is what they do, and that's cool. I have no issue with it, but they're not on the same field that. The only reason they are the money generator and the popularity generator that they are is because they have Disney's backing right now.
Right.
That's it. Without Disney's backing, they're not shit compared to DC. That we can agree on 100%. But Star Wars is was just about as big as fucking Disney when they came rolling in. So
I agree. It's a different market. Like if you're comparing it to just the typical person, I think it's pretty same. If you're talking about if go see a Star Wars movie compared to a Batman movie, you're going to win that. That doesn't mean they're more popular. That just means their movies are better than the Batman movies.
Brand exposure, though.
I would say that I will go and I will sit through maybe a Star Wars movie than watch another Christopher Nolan Batman movie. And that's coming from a Batman fan. Like, I can't handle another Christopher Nolan Batman movie. Because I feel like I'm the only one who doesn't like that interpretation of it, the character. I like Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight Rises was okay. Fuck The Dark Knight. Fuck that whole movie. It's the only one out of the three that I did not go and see in the theaters more than once. I saw it once in the theaters. I watched it on DVD once, and I was done with it. Right. Batman Begins, I went and saw it 3 times in the theater. And I was freshman, right? Is that when it came out? We were freshmen?
Oh, God. Batman Begins was like 2003, so yeah.
No, 2005.
Was it 2005
yeah.
for Begins?
Mm-hmm. 2004, okay. 2005. So, yeah, I think we were – because I didn't drive yet. So the first time I saw it with my dad, and I loved it. And then I went and saw it again, I think, with my mom and my sister. And then the third time I actually biked to the movie theater, which were where Gander Mountain is. That's where it used to be.
Yep.
And my parents' house, do you know where the Saratoga Sports Complex is in Waukesha?
Not really.
The old DMV?
Yeah.
From there, biking over there. That's a bike ride. And we biked in the rain to go watch Batman for the third time. So I really, that's how much I really enjoyed that movie. As far as a couple of the movies I really enjoyed in the beginning is that, and then maybe Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one. Those are the ones I've seen in the theaters more than once that I actually wanted to go see more than once. Now I saw I Am Legend 3 times as well because I really enjoyed that. But
sure.
But that was when I could drive and shit. But as far as going out of my way to go see a movie 3 times, that was one of the only ones. And I saw Dark Knight Rises 3 times in the theaters too. And that's like I said, I'm one of the bigger hardcore Batman fans you're going to run into. So yeah, there's going to be a little biasness there, and I would argue the same thing with you because you're like Star Wars all the way. I get that. So of course, you're going to have that. We're going to have that little backlash right there. As far
the thing
as
is not even I like Star Trek significantly more than I like Star Wars.
Yeah, but you like Star Wars significantly more probably than Batman.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's the thing. I'm not a big superhero guy at all. If you look at my movie collection, I don't have any superhero movies outside of Batman. Because I don't consider Batman a superhero. I consider it I don't consider him a part of it, a superhero clique. I'm not a big fan of Justice League when they have Batman fighting off aliens. It just seems weird to me. I like it when he is trying to solve a crime. He's like a police officer with martial arts skills and a Batmobile and a secret identity kind of thing. The secret identity is very important with him compared to other heroes. If nobody knows who Barry Allen is, so people found out that Barry Allen is the Flash, they have to look up in a phone book to find out who Barry Allen is. Superman is Clark Kent. No one would give a shit because Superman's his main job. Clark Kent is his secret identity, is Superman, whatever. Now, Batman lives literally 2 different lives. He's got Bruce Wayne, which the business side of Bruce Wayne, similar to Oliver Queen with Arrow. I've convinced myself when I watch Arrow that Oliver Queen is Bruce Wayne. So that way, if people get pissed, it's Oliver Queen. It's not Bruce Wayne. That's their way. So they could make him do stuff that maybe Bruce wouldn't do because it's not Bruce Wayne. But it's their Bruce Wayne. Because when he's in altercations with the other heroes and they're all talking, he always distances himself and he doesn't trust anybody, just like Batman would be. So that's who he's based off of. Another thing is if you look up Arrow now, his Wikipedia or whatever, to find his backstory, it's been rewritten to what the TV show is now. So he didn't really have much of a backstory. So in a way, you could say that the CW created this Green Arrow character, even though he's been around.
Right.
But as far as his popularity is increased, I feel like the CW has done a great job with these shows. Obviously, Flash, people knew, the typical comic book guy knew who Flash was. They heard of the Flash. But Green Arrow, that's kind of one that you didn't know. I mean, I knew who the Green Arrow was because I've watched Justice League, and it's a completely different character. Guy with a beard, and he shoots arrows that explode and shit. That's kind of his thing. And you just knew his name was Oliver. You didn't know it was Oliver Queen or anything like that. So, I don't know. I think the real argument, if you're talking about people in the same brand, would be Marvel versus DC. And Star Wars is probably, you'd have to compare it to big other movie franchises. Batman's not a big movie franchise compared to Star Wars. Batman is big in its ways of expressing itself to the general audience and other forms of media besides movies. It does it in movies, don't get me wrong, and they still probably make more money in their movies than they probably do in their comics because that's where the big money is, obviously. But they are the number one comic. That's the one thing they're always going to have. They are going to be. They're going to always be the king of animation as long as that animated series that they had. Nobody's going to touch that. Now, if you're far as just going ratings wise, yeah, there's going to be shows that are going to draw better. SpongeBob probably draws better.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like as far as what everybody that goes out and wants to create more of an adult animated show that's still geared to a family friendly. Everyone goes back to that animated series and says, how can we recreate that? And every show, for the most part, has failed at it, including Batman trying to recreate itself when they tried The Batman, which was okay, but it wasn't good. I mean, it wasn't great or anything like that. It was just okay. Batman Beyond was okay. I don't think it was great, but it was okay. Justice League was okay. It was good, probably a little better than Batman Beyond. But we kind of got away from Mask of the Phantasm, like usual.
Yeah.
So it's fine. I mean, I'm a big Batman guy, so their graphic novels is where a lot of their movies are based from. That Killing Joke graphic novel. The Dark Knight Returns, which was a complete film adaptation later on, years after. In the 80s, they pumped out a bunch of huge graphic novels. The Killing Joke, The Dark Knight Returns, and I think Under the Red Hood. And they all came out with their own movies. And they're supposed to be coming out with another one called Justice League Dark, which is supposed to focus on the magic portion of the characters, like Katana and or not Katana, sorry. That Alakazam bitch, and then Constantine, which I didn't even know was a DC thing.
Yeah, I can't even say I know what he would be popular from.
So how long before we see Arrow involved in a Supernatural episode? Because they are part of the same network. It's not the same universe, not yet at least. But are you going to see a Supernatural episode where they go to Star City?
I hope not. I hope the CW files for bankruptcy when that happens. That's horrible.
The only way they could do it is if they're saying Supernatural is part of a different Earth, because now they're expanding universes that way. Like Supergirl is on Earth 3, so she's not part of their universe. She has to come through a thing that Barry Allen made that she can come.
Right.
Same thing with Reverse Flash and some villains. Killer Frost is from Earth 2. She's not a Earth 1 villain. And then every Earth has a doppelganger. So another version of yourself. So your version on Earth 2 could be an accountant. Taking it in the ass.
Nice. It's not far off from what I am. So.
By Mark Simpson's doppelganger.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't want to be a part of that Earth.
Well, you're not. That's your doppelganger. Just don't hang out there. Earth 3, you could be a World War III terrorist.
Okay.
Battling against Iceland. Iceland and Greenland had a war that created World War III in Earth 3. Just making an example.
Well.
So they already referenced something from the have you ever seen the show The 100?
No.
They referenced The 100 in one of the Arrow episodes. They went into a bunker and they called it Mount Weather, which is something from The 100. And they asked Oliver asked, "What's Mount Weather?" He's like, "Oh, something that's going to be used in the future to when the radiation hits." I was like, "Really?" So they're saying that Damien Dark's, because he was going to kill everybody and only saves pretty much 100 people. He's going to destroy the whole world and rebuild it as him as the leader to make him stronger. And they're using that as what created the 100, because the 100's in the future, where the Earth was not survivable and they lived in a satellite, and then they came down and then they found out that Earth was survivable. So Damien Dark's the cause of that.
Well, good. Ties it all together. Full circle.
I feel like I'm the only one who caught that when I was watching it. I'm like, really?
I didn't know that was supposed to be part of the DC universe.
The 100?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Well, it is now.
Well, it's not part of the DC universe. It's part of the CW universe. All on the same network. So they could do that, I guess, technically, right?
I guess. It's tacky, but sure.
They could do a supernatural episode and make it part of Flash or maybe some metahumans or whatever. And have Flash show up. Don't you want to see Sam and Dean fight?
Well, let's see Sam and Dean be not on the air anymore because the show's been going on for 10 years too long. But whatever.
Yeah, they're renewed for another season.
Fuck them.
Don't you want to see Sam and Dean with an X-File tie-in? That would
be more believable and make more sense than...
That'd be kind of cool, actually. I'd be all in on that.
Yeah.
I'd be totally all in on that. Well, I think with that, we're just about to end it. But
we kept it on DC point, though, tonight, I think. I think we did a pretty good job with that. I think we just need debates.
Batman debates?
You take something you enjoy, I'll take something I enjoy, and we just head to head.
Let's see, we're both too fucking stubborn to admit one's right or wrong.
Correct,
so it'd be like listening to Sean Hannity argue with Chris Matthews.
To our audience, I am clearly right and you are proven wrong. But it's over. It's over now. It's over now. You wrote me a note during the show saying, I'm defeated. Please stop. And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah?
If anyone could see the look on his face right now, it looks like a combination of a serial killer and
/
serial
ass
killer.
rapist.
Professional ass rapist. Yes.
Why is this not connecting? Really? Hold on. There we go. God damn. Such a cunt bag. So I guess with that, we're going to wrap up our podcast time. Next week, we will do 3 more episodes of the animated series.
Oh, yeah.
I will try to stay more on point. I think Mask of the Phantasm, definitely go out and watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then maybe we'll come back and touch on it again. With that, I'm Andrew Caracci alongside
Robert Roth.
And we will be back next week. This is what we're going to end with from now on.
Batman got on my nerves. He was running me amok. He ridiculed me, calling me a bum. I whooped Batman's ass. 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 I whooped Batman's ass.
That's Killer Croc.
Batman thought he was bad. He was a fucking asshole in the first place. He got knocked to the floor. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass. I whooped Batman's ass.
That was a pretty awesome fight. I remember this episode. This was a good one. It's just him fighting Killer Croc like the whole episode. It's awesome.
hell out of me and knocked me to the floor. I got back up and knocked him to the floor. He was being such a jagoff. I whooped Batman's ass. 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 Rock over London, rock on Chicago. Wheaties, represent champions.